Good evening. Thanks for choosing 21 News. Derek and Madison have tonight off. Youngstown police spent the day sorting through evidence and interviews to try to come up with some sense of how 3 people ended up shot and killed early Sunday morning. Some details that are being released at this point: the identity of 2 of the 3 victims. Late this afternoon, the Mahoning County coroner identified those victims as 19-year-old Maquan Stevens and 23-year-old Rayshawn Clay. Besides the 3 killed, 3 others also suffered apparent gunshot wounds, with 1 in critical condition. As Youngstown police detectives spent the day unraveling everything that happened, it became clear that the violence didn't happen all at once, but rather was a series of violent incidents across the city's west side. 21 Sydney Canty has been working the story all day long and introduces us to one family that is grief-stricken tonight after losing 2 of their loved ones within hours of each other. Sydney.
Chris, YPD was back at the scene collecting surveillance video and shell casings. I'm also told that they went to the hospital to speak to victims who are cooperating. I spoke with the family members of one of the victims who were fatally shot, and they told me that he was just an innocent bystander.
Youngstown police investigators were back on the scene working to piece together what caused shots to be fired at the Torch Bar and Grill. They collected surveillance video from a nearby restaurant, shell casings, and blood samples from the ground. They say this was not a mass shooting, but describe it as multiple guns fired with multiple people shot. Neighbors in the area who declined to go on camera out of fear of retaliation say they saw 100 to 200 people in the streets. They say they saw men arguing and then shooting at each other, and then a security guard began shooting. One man tells me he was sitting in his recliner in the living room when a bullet entered his home. It missed him by only 3 feet. The family of one of the victims, Charles Borio, who was fatally shot, said he had just called to say he was on his way home from a different bar, but never made it. They believe he was shot in the crossfire and crashed his vehicle on Salt Springs Road. That family suffered a double tragedy when they found out Charles's uncle, Nicholas Borio, died just hours later after he crashed into the 7-Eleven bridge. Youngstown's law director, Jeff Limbian, says the Torch Bar and Grill was having what he calls a pop-up concert. And he goes on to say that these types of events caused similar situations at several other venues, including First Lounge, Coconut Grove, and most recently, the Utopia nightclub. He says pop-up security at events like these is becoming a major problem, and that's because oftentimes the same security personnel is used at these events. Late this afternoon, 21 News found out that Mayor Tito Brown and other city officials have been in contact with Governor Mike DeWine about these fatal shootings. With more local news, I'm Sydney Canty.
Sydney, thanks. This weekend shooting was reminiscent of the Utopia nightclub shooting that left 1 person dead and 2 others hurt back on April 3rd. Youngstown's law director Jeff Limbian tells us investigators are in fact looking into any possible connections between this weekend shooting, the deadly shooting at Utopia, and other shootings that happened at Coconut Grove and First Lounge. Limbian says it's not clear if the same people are involved, but the situations are all the same, with pop-up security for those pop-up concerts. The Torch Bar has been open since February of this year, and we went ahead and checked with the state and found that they do, in fact, have a valid liquor license with no violations having been reported.